Hello everyone. Today's lectures are going to focus on the firm. So just to remind you where we are, having done a deeper drill into the behavior of the consumer in previous units, we are now thinking about the behavior of the firm, which is on the supply side. So in economics, we argue that capitalist firms focus on profit maximization. Now, there are a lot of debates and disputes within economics as a field about how that profit maximization takes place and what kinds of factors go into firms' understanding of this. So, for example, in business schools, there are entire fields on human resource management, organizational theory, things like that. Right? We are going to assume that our firms are perfectly competitive firms, ideal firms that have the best information and the best capacity to coordinate production. And therefore, their decision making is going to be driven really by factors that surround profit maximization. So the idea is that the average firm that we are going to talk about is a price taker, and it's going to therefore decide how much to produce, thinking about what is the maximum profit it will get to sell at a certain level at the given price. So to get that, we first start by realizing what exactly profit is. Profit is simply equal to what I'm going to use the word total, and you're going to see why I put in here, total revenue minus total cost. Right? So the basic idea is the firm is going to try and make sure that this number, profit, is the largest that it can get. Right? So on the surface, it would seem that the biggest profit is going to be the most that you can make. The more you make, the more you sell, the bigger the profit. But once you realize that profit's actually the difference between revenue and cost, you can begin to see that the maximum profit isn't the same thing as just keeping on selling. Because if your costs go up faster than your revenues go up, then your profit's not going to be that good, right? But if your costs, if your revenue manages to go up more than the cost, then your profit's going to go up. So really what's going to matter then is the relationship between total revenue and total cost, right? And so we want to figure out how fast this goes up, and we want to figure out how fast that goes up. So in order to figure that out, I'm going to start by looking at this one, total revenue. The nature of revenue is going to depend on the kind of firm we're talking about. So later on, when we come to oligopolies or monopolies, we're going to see that how revenue works is going to be a little bit different. But let's focus right now on our profit maximizing firm. All right? Total revenue is basically, and I'm going to use TR for that, is basically price times quantity. Assuming that I can sell whatever quantity I make, what's the price I got for that? Multiplied by the quantity I got for that. Right? Price-taking firms essentially have this P given to them. So for a price-taking firm, going back to the concept of elasticity that we had before, the price-taking firm faces a situation where whatever the price is, it can sell whatever quantity it wants at that price. So we are going to assume that the demand curve faced by a individual price-taking firm is perfectly elastic. Of course, if you are not a price-taking firm, if you are an oligopoly or a monopoly, then you can't just assume price is given, because when you are a large enough firm, it depends on demand. As we know, in the demand curve, you can have that quantity might decrease or increase depending on price and so on. But let's focus on the simple case. And so what we see is basically total revenue is price times quantity. So let us say the price was $3. Then 3 times whatever quantity you sold. If you sold 10, the revenue would be 30. If you sold 20, the revenue would be 60, and so on, right? So 3 times whatever quantity you sold is your total revenue. You are trying to figure out what this Q should be. You're going to choose the quantity so that you get the maximum profit. And we're going to have to figure out how that works. So that's the first piece of this. I'm going to add a couple more concepts. The first concept I'm going to call average revenue. And this is your total revenue divided by the quantity. So if, for example, the quantity was 10, your total revenue is 30. 3 times 10 is 30, which means your average revenue, the average revenue per unit, is 3. So in the case of a price-taking firm, you're going to find that the average revenue is the same thing as the price. If the price varied as quantity varied, then of course that's not going to be true. But in this case, average revenue is just the same thing as the price. More interestingly, I'm going to now add a final concept, and I'm going to do it here, that I'm going to call marginal. Remember, we said that this idea of marginal is going to be important. And that is going to be the change in total revenue over the change in quantity. In other words, this is how much extra revenue am I getting for each additional unit that I produce and sell. And in this case, since I'm a price taker, that is also the same as the price. That is, the first unit gave me $3. The second unit added $3 to my revenue. Third unit added $3 to my revenue. Fourth unit added $3 to my revenue. Each extra unit is adding that same $3 to the revenue. So the marginal revenue is also the same as price. So just remember, for a price-taking firm, on the revenue side, revenue is price times quantity. The price is given. And as a result of the price being given, it turns out that average revenue is price and marginal revenue is also price.